Hello, today's tangle for BU Bijou is called Hollibaugh, and there are so many variations of how you can draw this tangle. So we'll play a little bit. I'll show you a couple variations, but if at any point you're loving the way we're drawing it, go ahead and stick with that way. There's no right or wrong here. So I'm going to start with my pencil as usual, and we will draw our corner dots. Now, before we do that, feel free to go ahead and set your intention. If you need to pause and ground and take a few breaths and prepare your space. So 4 corner dots, and then we connect them with our pencil. Maybe these are a little curvy today. Maybe I'm not really focused on making them extra straight. They just have a little bit of character to them. And then I put my pencil down and we bring in the Micron 01. So Hollibaugh is when I teach this class with kids, we often end up calling it roads and bridges. It is, we kind of create planks on our tile. So we start at one side and come all the way down to the other side and connect. And then we leave a little space. You can decide how wide, and we aura that line. So draw a parallel line right next to it. And then it becomes this layering of drawing these all the way across. So we're going from one border to the other, drawing these planks. But when we hit a line that we've already drawn, when we connect with that line, we pick up our pen as if it's going underneath and then continue it on. So I'm going to draw this plank, and then it's just a series of being mindful of when you're going underneath lines you've already drawn and creating these planks. Like for me, I prefer to draw toward myself, and I prefer to I don't remember what I was going to say there. That's okay. I'm already deep in my tangling. It'll come back to me if it needs to. So I start on one edge, I draw toward myself. And then as this gets more layered, it gets a little more complicated. Not complicated, just maybe needs a little more focus so that we make sure we're drawing where we're going underneath what we've already drawn. The other thing that we can do is if we were to by accident draw over a line, you could just color it in. It wouldn't have to be open like this. So that's one variation of Hollibaugh without a lot of extra flair or pizzazz. And it looks cool just because it's so layered, and also like you could tangle in these spaces. Some of them are pretty small, but if you were mindful about using Hollibaugh as a string, you could tangle in these places. So I'm going to show you another way you can do it. You can kind of like curve your line at the top. Maybe there's a little line there. And I'm running out of room, and curve your line at the top. And then at the bottom, maybe you could curve your alignment as well. Now you can leave it just curved like that, or if you want to, you can do almost like thicken the bottom, like create like a triangle. So another way to do that, instead of curving it the way I just did, you don't have to add this weight if you don't want to, but it can be kind of fun. You could actually do that to lines that already exist. You could just kind of like retrace it and curve out a little. So that's one way you can change Hollibaugh a little bit. That was a lot, but sometimes it's nice to have them thick and really show it's almost like something is attaching it to the edge. Like almost like a stained glass type look. Like another thing you can do, and because this is like so thick, I'm going to show it on this one, is you can do what they call weighted Hollibaugh, where you thicken the entire line. Thicken the entire line and color that in. And if you choose to do this one, I would recommend doing them all on the same side. So like I went to the right on this one, So if I choose to do that, again, I would go on the right on this one. And I'm really just creating, I'm darkening up that line. Weighted Hollibaugh is a great way. If you get your lines a little bit off, you can kind of adjust. You can adjust it one way or the other. Sometimes when I go underneath, I start a little bit to the right and then it looks a little bit off. But then if you just draw another line and make it weighted, it works. So some are weighted, some have the weighting on the edges at the bases, some are just plain, and I think that is totally fine. Another thing you can do with Hollibaugh is to make them narrow at the top. So I'm going to draw my first line. I'll show you what I mean here. Let's see, that's open, that's under, like this. I could go like this so that it almost, like it flares out and is wider at the bottom. That's another way you can do it. So there's a lot of ways to play with Hollibaugh. I'm going to have that be enough lines. I'm also going to show you different ways to shade it. You can leave it as is, or like when you do weighted Hollibaugh, you can go on just the one side that is weighted and do that. You could shade on every single one like that. You can also do only where they cross, and you could go on both sides. So only where like the boards are going over another board and do it that way, right? And so the shading on Hollibaugh could take a hot second because if you're, depending on how much you do and depending on how many lines you draw, but the shading can add a lot and make it look really different. So depending on how you want it to look, you can really play with this. So only where the boards are, only on one side, or you can shade on both sides of the entire board. And to do that, I like to turn my tile so my pencil is. So you can see where this could get a whole lot of shading and a whole lot of graphite on the tile. And that's all just personal preference. Which way do you like it best? Try it, play. You could draw a bunch of tiles with Hollibaugh and then shade them all in the same manner. You know, like shade one all the same way and then shade the next one all the same way. And that might be kind of fun way to explore and see kind of which look you like better. But when I first learned tangling, this is one of the very first tangles I ever learned. And I was like, oh, it's cool. It's kind of fun. And then as you like start getting into the tangle and shading it and playing with it and realizing how different it can look, and it can make a great string. And sometimes like if you make these wide enough, you can even do like tangle fragments in the Hollibaugh. So maybe in another episode we can play with Hollibaugh even more. But for now I'm just doing the mono tangles and showing you variations as I can, as it works. This is a tangle where it works to show you the variations. So that's Hollibaugh. Let's see that. I'm going to leave that alone. I'm not even going to shade anymore. That feels like kind of a fun mishmash of the way it can play out. And I also feel like for some reason I like this bar at the top. Like you could even like put a word in there if you wanted to. So I'm going to call that upright, and I'm going to sneak my chop. I think I'm going to do it here so it connects with this. And then again, we date it, sign it, and this tangle is called Hollibaugh. It is Molly's last name. That is one of Maria's daughters who is part of the Zentangle Inc. team. YOU Bijou. It's not a team, it's a family, and it's delightful, and it's amazing to be part of it, and I'm grateful you're here joining me for it as well. Bye. Have a great day.